DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL playoffs, is bringing you an offer that'll help make the playoffs electrifying. New customers can bet $5 on any game and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. The Cowboys are 7-point favorites against the Packers this weekend, and I'm excited to see how they manage to mess it up.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code Jenkins. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code Jenkins. The crown is yours. Welcome to Jenkins and Jonez on the Volume Podcast Network. It is Saturday, January 27th, and we are excited to be breaking down this weekend's AFC and NFC championship games. We are also going to be joined by Tashan Reed to talk about the Raiders hiring Antonio Pierce and all of the changes going on with that franchise. As always, Jenkins and Jonez, hosted by LeJethro Jenkins, a.k.a. John.
What's up, Bubbas?
Dragonfly Jones, a.k.a. Tyler.
Hey, everybody, have a good?
I'm Gardy B, a.k.a. Mike.
Motherfucking Mike.
And we're produced, as always, by the lovely and talented Jackson Saffron.
What's up? Wow. Every once in a while, John and Tyler just get me with that one. God, I'm sorry.
Mike chuckled a little bit too, man. We did a good one. High five. We did it.
Wow.
As always, a reminder, if you are not subscribed to youtube.com/@JenkinsandJones, there is exclusive content going up a couple times a week. We've got our Twitter, answering Twitter questions. We've also got behind the scenes of Dragonfly Jones, the Twitter account that changed everything. Sorry. All right. Oh, I got a Tyler chuckle and an eye roll from John. That's all I'm ever asking for. That's all I've ever asked.
Your fandom of Dragonfly Jones is hilarious to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, you said you have to separate the two. I know that,
because Tyler's my friend. You know what I mean? And you can't
I'm also a fan of Tyler. I think you can be a fan of your friend. Like,
I'm a fan of my friends, but in a healthy friendship way. I have been.
You wake up and what did Dragonfly Jones tweet today?
I have been on and addicted to Twitter for 14 years because of the Dragonfly Jones Twitter account.
That's different. I
would never hold that against my good personal friend Tyler.
Right. You know what I'm saying? I kicked the habit. You know what I mean? So maybe that's why I can. He just tired.
I'm tweeting like once a week now and shit.
Yeah, nigga, that's crazy, nigga. Crazy.
John gets on Twitter and asks people if they've heard of a scientific phenomenon and then logs off. Doesn't even check to see the responses.
So bad. Don't even. I tweeted some shit about living single like at 11 o'clock last night. Horrible time to tweet on the West Coast. You know what I mean? I'm just like, I don't give a fuck.
All right.
Anyway.
Let's break down these football games. We'll start with the AFC Championship game. Ravens-Chiefs. I think this is the game that all of us were secretly hoping for in our heart of hearts.
Especially me. Been waiting all year, brother.
I feel like this is a game that even the most casualist NFL fan is interested in. Lamar versus Mahomes. Come on, man. Like you're not gonna be locked in for this.
Probably not.
John just wants to.
Is it Saturday or Sunday? It depends on the day. What day is it?
On Sunday.
It's Sunday.
They played football on
Eastern.
Sunday, John.
Oh, okay. So I mean, but they okay. I mean, but on the playoffs they play Saturday games too.
It's called Championship Sunday for a reason.
Okay, cool.
John, you're the reason we got all those SEO stories of what time does the Super Bowl start, bro. You know what I mean?
My nigga, and that makes sense. I would have known that 5 years ago. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be at the driving range with my daughter, bro. It'll be playing in the background though. I might peek at it a little few times.
I'm gonna text you updates like on the ESPN app. I'm gonna give you a play-by-play.
Will the ESPN app exist at that point? That's kind of. Everything's burning around us.
John's boycotting the NFL because they're not showing him enough Taylor Swift cutaways.
Exactly. More white women. Jackal me.
Tyler, I feel like this is the game we were hoping for, Ravens-Chiefs. How excited are you that we get Lamar and the 1-seed Ravens against a Chiefs team and a Pat Mahomes that look like they're in championship form now that we're in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think this is the most interesting game of the postseason, regardless of whatever Super Bowl matchup we get. I'm hoping that the actual product lives up to the hype. I'm so torn here, man. Like I said at the start of this postseason, I'm never counting Mahomes out. But at the same time, the Ravens were my pick to win the AFC. And, Mahomes was cooking. He's been cooking the last 2 games. He's just been phenomenal. Like I said, best quarterback I've ever seen. He's just got to run that resume up, to be the GOAT. He's already the GOAT to me. He just got to prove it to y'all motherfuckers for real. But,
keep it in a beat.
It's just, I've shifted course a few times on some of my picks here, and I think I'm gonna do it again, man. I'm still gonna go with Mahomes until proven otherwise. I would love for Lamar to, show out, go to the Super Bowl and hopefully win it all, but I'm just not betting against Mahomes right now, man.
I'm gonna stick with the Ravens because I did pick Niners-Ravens before the playoffs started. It is alive. The Ravens especially have given me no reason to think that they are vulnerable. And I'm going to go with them, but it's a lot of people out there who are going to feel stupid, talking about how good the Ravens looks. If the dude who's always in the Super Bowl and the AFC Championship game, who's always been in the AFC Championship game, wins that game, I think a lot of us are going to feel stupid. So I'm not mad at that in the slightest, Tyler. I'm trying to get
I got a question for you,
up.
Mike.
Yeah.
As a 49ers fan, who would you rather see? Mahomes, who was obviously fucking Mahomes,
The Chiefs.
Because the Ravens, they cooked y'all this year. You feel what I'm saying?
I think the Ravens are the best. Yes, I mean since Christmas, I think the Ravens are the best team in football. Like I said, they've given me no reason to feel any other way.
Lamar had the best game of his career against
crazy,
y'all, bro.
Saying you rather, but I get it.
Well, and I think similarly, like we've just been saying all this stuff about Mahomes, they're plus 3.5. I mean, actually, Jackson, can you give me the DraftKings number? But I'm looking at a line right now that's got them plus 3.5. The Ravens are favored by 3.5. Like, 3.5 at home obviously shows that there's a lot of respect.
It's a pick 'em basically. You know the whole saying, you get 3 at home.
3 at home.
So it's basically a pick 'em.
But you get a chance, like Tyler, he's Tyler's greatest quarterback of all time. He's plus 3.5 in the playoffs. Like that's enticing. And I'm not but that is enticing. I do understand. I would still, as a Niners fan, I would rather see the Chiefs. I do think that they're a flawed team. I do think that football is different from any other sport in that it is the ultimate team game. Mahomes has already lost a Super Bowl. Brady lost Super Bowls. It is like, I think the Niners absolutely without question have a better team than the Chiefs. And I like our chances way, way, way better against the Chiefs than against the Ravens. I've been saying the whole playoffs, I hope someone else takes the Ravens out because it's going to be a miserable 2 weeks for me. We have Chelsea and Rita on here to preview the Super Bowl and it's Niners Ravens. I'm not gonna have fun in the run up to that Super Bowl. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm hoping for the Chiefs. And I can't disagree with Tyler's logic, man. Like you're never gonna feel confident picking against Pat Mahomes in the playoffs, and he's shown that this year because this is the worst team he's had by far in this run, and they're still doing it. All right, NFC Championship game, Niners hosting the Lions. I'm glad y'all are slapping the snow roach tag on my 49ers. I'm glad we're at least going up against, it's like you're going to root for Detroit with Aiden Hutchinson and Jared Goff. You know what I mean? Like at least we're going snow roach for snow roach here. I feel like I have a limb to stand on the Jenkins and Jonez podcast being a Niners fan in this game.
Bro, Detroit is one of the blackest cities in the country, so it's easy for me to make my pick, my emotional pick there. And, a long-suffering, faithful fan base there, too. But I think that the 49ers win this one, unfortunately.
You hate Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel that much?
Nope. That's not what I said. Love those dudes. That motherfucking Nick Bosa. Goddamn.
Yeah. It's tough to look past Nick Bosa, bro. I get it. I mean, I do understand. Niners are 7-point favorites. I don't know, man. I'm gonna pick the Niners, like I said, that was my pick before the season. But it's tough with the way the Packers were able to run the ball against the Niners. That is Detroit's identity. So I'm definitely a little nervous about that. Brock Purdy typically, when he shits himself, bounces back. He bounced back very well at the end of the game against the Packers. I'm hoping that that'll kind of continue this week, obviously, but we'll see, man. I mean, a lot of it comes down to the health of Deebo Samuel, which when we're recording it, we don't have an answer yet on what his availability is going to be. So fingers crossed. But Kyle Shanahan specifically said, and I appreciate that he kind of pulled the curtain back on this. He said, if we can plan for not having him, he said, that's a lot better than finding out midway through the game that you're not going to have him. Because so much of their offense is built around all the different stuff that dude can do that you can't sub anyone in for him. They have talented players. They can build different game plans around different dudes, but losing him in the middle of a game is just such a blow to everything they're planning on doing that, like, I'm hopeful that will at least, they're not going to come in just relying completely on having him. So, I guess fingers crossed about that.
You know what's crazy? How far white winged you have to be to out black a Deebo Samuel? A Deebo? Like, nigga, that's like Tyler's like, nigga, fuck them. And they have a Deebo on their fucking squad, bro. They got a Deebo.
It's just one of my favorites.
Bosa is that far white winged to say, yo, I know you got Deebo, but fuck it. Y'all Nick Bosa. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy.
And Trent Williams, so I know is one of Tyler's favorite players ever. He
loves Trent, man.
So and Trent is similar. I mean, they walk into the stadium with a boombox that's like half the size of a Honda Civic. You know what I mean? Like they're in the front, but I understand that you're looking at who's right behind him.
Nick Bosa poking his head out. With that MAGA flag waved high there, you can't ignore that shit. That red hat
Nick
pop
Bosa
out,
been suggesting Kenny
in
Chesney for weeks straight, still getting shot down, bro. They're like, no, sir, we are playing this young Dolph.
Did I ever tell you about, we have a football team near Long Beach and Bellflower, St. John Bosco, who's like a perennial national championship contender, all this other stuff, right? I ever tell you about the musical thing that they do? They let the players pick the music for practice, Monday, Tuesday, the Thursday walkthrough. But Wednesday is White Boy Wednesday. The coaches pick the soundtrack, like classic rock. I mean, it's like Nirvana or AC/DC or some shit like that.
Representation matters, honestly, man.
Bro.
Yeah.
I get it.
It is. And the kids, there was some cross-pollination. The kids enjoyed it. No, they were having fun with it for sure. But I always appreciated that. It was like, hey, we will listen to Travis Scott Monday and Tuesday, but White Boy Wednesday comes around.
And y'all got some slaps, man. I can't lie, bro. Y'all got some shit. I got hip to it late, but y'all got some shit, bro. You feel me?
White music I was just listening to, Simon and Garfunkel, because it was raining. I always listen to Simon and Garfunkel when it's raining. You listen to Simon and Garfunkel, John?
Not too much, but I fuck with the Bee Gees. You know what I mean? Shit like that. It's white people. It's black music.
You got into Neil Young for like a week.
Eagles. I fuck with the Eagles and Neil Young a little bit. Y'all hit me. You know what I'm saying? The Eagles kind of tough. Yeah. Obviously, who the homie that we know that nobody thought was white until we was like 35.
That doesn't count.
No, but who is it? But he
Bobby Caldwell.
Bobby Caldwell. Well, Bobby, you know what I'm saying? I fuck with Bobby. I mean, y'all got some shit.
You fuck with Bobby thinking he was black though. I feel like that doesn't count.
But he was called. But yeah.
It's like white people who were excited. Mike McDaniel got hired as a Dolphins coach, not knowing that he was biracial. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There we go. That makes sense. Y'all got some good jazz too. There's a couple good jazz artists, which is surprising. But yeah.
Oh, you sent the one dude, Matt. Allsell or something. I forget his name. Trumpetist you sent, who is really good. The white dude. I don't normally listen to.
There's a couple. Y'all got a few. I'm surprising. Yeah. Y'all got some shit, bro. Y'all got some shit.
All right. Before we get to our interview with Tashan, I want to talk to Tyler about. There's a lot of momentum around changing the touchback rule in the NFL, which is this: if you are going towards the goal line, you reach the ball out, you've gone 99 yards, whatever, you're on the 1 yard line. The other team knocks the ball out of your hand and it bounces sideways out of the back of the end zone. It is now their ball on the 20 via the touchback rule. And there's been a lot of momentum because this happened in the Chiefs-Bills game around changing this. It does sound like the NFL is going to change it. And I have personally been of the belief that it is like, that is a very harsh change of events to go from being on the 1 and a fumble out of bounds, which if it goes out of bounds on the 1, it's still your ball. If it goes out of bounds 2 yards further, it's the other team's ball and they're 20 yards forward. But Tyler made, I thought, a really brilliant point about why that rule should stand. And I have to say, you convinced me, actually. and I hope that they don't change the rule. But could you explain that to the listeners, Tyler?
Well, first off, welcome to the right side of history. We're glad to have you. But
thanks, brother.
But yeah, I think that the fumble in the end zone touchback rule makes perfect sense. We've all heard the George Carlin bit where he likens football to war, right? And it very much is kind of, you can see the similarities. Of course, it's just a fucking sport, right? Like, let's not be ridiculous. But it is a sport where one team is aggressively trying to take territory from another team, and another team is aggressively trying to prevent their territory from getting taken from them, right? Like, the dynamic is there. So I feel like the way to look at the touchback rule to make it make sense is you have to look at the field as the battlefield and the end zone as a team's fort, right? And that is what the teams are fighting valiantly to defend. They are fighting to keep you out of their fort. So if you fumble and an unaccompanied football rolls into a team's fort, it belongs to them now, right? It's very simple. And fumbles on the battlefield that go out of bounds, they stay with the offense because the battlefield doesn't belong to anybody. It's that simple. And for people who are like, okay, well, what about safeties? Why if an offense has the football in their own fort, why is it a safety if they fumble or if they get tackled? And the reason for that is this. Every safety is a loss of yardage, right? The furthest back you can ever be is on the 1 yard line. So if you get pushed, and the 1 yard line, like, let's just say that is the door to your fort. If you get pushed back from the 1 yard line into the end zone, the door to your fort they took your fort. And the reason a safety is only 2 points instead of 6 points, because even though they entered your fort, they weren't quote unquote armed with the football, right? So that's why it's 2 points instead of 6 points. And a field goal, that is just like someone catapulting a stone over the fort's wall. You feel me? And a touchdown is like an armed infantry entering the fort. That's why it's 6 points. So like I said, it just makes sense if you look at it through that scope.
And that is clearly, like, this is a famous George Carlin bit. That is clearly the correct, like, all of the language around football is like marshaling, like the field general. It's all military language.
Right. The receiver corps, right? The linebacker.
The last people you would send into an actual war, the receiver corps. Yeah. You know what I mean? The wide receivers and DBs, like that famous tweet, when the grass is mowed, the snakes will show their head. Right.
The enemy smiles and holds a knife. But yeah, the touchback rule makes perfect sense to me. I hope they do not change it, bro. You've got 99 yards of field where a fumble stays with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, we do not need to give the offense any more advantages with rules, I feel like.
Unfortunately, that would be the one, if you're getting into Damas mode, the one safe bet for the last 40 years in the NFL is if they have a chance to make the rules favor the offense more, they are going to do that.
Yeah. There's that.
Inexorably. All right. We'll be back in just a second with our interview with Tashan Reed.
Every time I buy tickets, it's a weird pick-your-own adventure experience with a bunch of hidden fees, and I never know what I'm going to spend. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Gametime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you.
I'm looking at the Gametime app right now. The Wizards have quite a few home games that I'm interested in coming up. They've got the Phoenix Suns visiting in February. They've got the Celtics coming there a couple weeks after that. Gametime offers last-minute ticket deals, zone deals. It's easy to find and buy tickets of every kind of event in your area. You can view all the seats in your venue. I'm very much interested in the Hennessy Suites that they have going on at the Wizards home arena, so definitely interested in investigating that a little bit more with this app.
Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total upfront, so you know you're getting a great deal before you check out. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. And with zone deals, you pick the section and Gametime picks the seats for big-time savings. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code J&J for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code JANDJ for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We are very excited to welcome Tashan Reed onto the podcast. He is the Raiders beat writer for The Athletic, as well as he's a senior writer who does columns and other larger football coverage as well. Tashan, you are at the center of the football universe right now. The Raiders have hired Antonio Pierce. You got the Super Bowl coming to town in a couple weeks. How are you doing, man?
I'm busy as usual. I mean, the Raiders, they never make it easy on me. I had another midseason coaching search for my second time since I've been covering this team. It ain't been that long, but so it was kind of familiar. But they always keep me on my toes. It's been an interesting year. Coaching searching and GM searches are always a grind as well. But finally over with, so I can relax for a little bit before the Super Bowl is here. So I'm staying busy.
That's good, man. Well, I mentioned to John and Tyler, I've got a good history with AP since he was a high school coach at Long Beach Poly, and I just want to congratulate you and all the other Raiders beat writers. You got the opposite of one of these boring HR manager fucking coaches that are all over the NFL. He's an interim coach talking about his message to the team was hatred, violence, and pain. Like, this is just a walking quote and a good dude too. How interesting is this story? How excited were you to see I don't know that we've really seen a player-led movement to keep an interim coach really work like this with one of the premier franchises. So how exciting has the story been? And what are your thoughts on that hire and what it's going to be like going forward?
Yeah, it was interesting to sort of compare it to the last time the Raiders kind of ended up in this situation, back in 2021 when obviously John Gruden was no longer the coach for different reasons than performance. But Rich Bisaccia took over as the interim head coach, and they kind of did a similar 180, and actually that season, in terms of football performance, it went better. They made the playoffs and the players kind of rallied around them. It was different then because of COVID, like we didn't have locker room access. And so like I had a sense just from talking to people, like how the players were reacting and galvanizing around Rich Bisaccia, and they definitely wanted him to get the job too. Ultimately he didn't. It went to Josh McDaniels. But this time I was actually able to like really feel it because I'm in the locker room every day now and I see the guys and I was able to compare and contrast like how it was those first 8 weeks under Josh McDaniels and then how it flipped like immediately, after Antonio Pierce took over. And so I think I just had more of an intimate knowledge and was able to see it up close in a clearer way. And I think that made it, more fun to cover and also allowed me to cover it with more depth. But yeah, man, I mean, I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, it wasn't like I've said before, like it wasn't like he was a coordinator or something of that nature. And we had talked to him a whole bunch and knew what he was all about. Like he was a linebackers coach, so he's tucked off in his office, and we don't ever really interact with him as media. But it was like as soon as he stepped in, it was like the entire energy and in the building changed. And that's obviously a positive, but it didn't really guarantee anything on the football field. But you saw this was a completely different team. I mean, the defense became basically the best one in the league the final 9 weeks. The offense was, they were still kind of, they stayed pretty ass. But, they beat the Chiefs, they won a few more games. And you could just, it's just more of it's like an intangible thing. Like culture, I know that's a buzzword, but you could just feel it. It's one of those things you kind of just had to be there for. And it was clear by the end of the season, honestly, before the season ended, that the players wanted AP, people in the building wanted AP, the fans wanted AP, and unlike last time, Mark Davis didn't get the job to Bisaccia. This time, he was pretty quick to give it to AP.
Yeah. I remember hitting you and we had a conversation like, a few weeks into AP's tenure when he was kind of gaining steam, like, this is probably their guy. And we had a discussion where we were like, we feel like the identity of the Raiders is kind of on the line here in the next coaching decision they make, like what you said with culture, where the Raiders have always been kind of a franchise that hired based on vibes. Like they gave Lane Kiffin a fucking head coaching position. You know what I'm saying? And we were like, they tried to steer away from that, like you mentioned when they went with, Josh McDaniels here and instead of the guy who the players wanted. But, this time they got a guy in AP who's like, if there ever was a dude who was a Raiders guy, AP is a fucking Raiders guy, right? Like he had that locker room behind him. He's someone who had complete buy-in to a locker room and a roster that had lost faith in their previous coach. And, I'm just kind of curious, being that you were in ground zero, right in the eye of the storm during all this, was there, how was it like, was there a moment where you were like, okay, this is gaining steam and I think, they're really going to go with AP here?
In terms of like, I think the moment that I noticed his impact, it was like right away, because I mean, he got up in his first press conference talking about, he's from Compton, he grew up wearing listening to NWA, wearing Raider hats, starter jackets. And you could just tell everybody, fans on Twitter, like, oh, this is my guy. Like we locked in. Like fans are easy to win over. So like you can see that part. But then when we went into the locker room,
coaches are boring, bro. If you're just a regular dude, like you're gonna win over your fans.
Listen, but we go into the locker room and like Devontae Adams is playing 1-on-1 with somebody on a mini hoop in the middle of the locker room. Like music is blasting. Like everybody's laughing and funny. Nothing has happened yet. Like they ain't played a game. They just had a practice. And like the entire mood of the entire building had shifted. And so it was apparent from the jump that like it was different. But in terms of when I knew that like things were locked up for AP, I mean, it had to be that Chiefs game. You go into Arrowhead. I know the Chiefs had kind of had like a weird season where like they couldn't tell if they were good or not, but it's still the Chiefs and it's still the Raiders. Like they've been beating on the Raiders' head for like 10 years now, and especially for them being at home. And the Raiders kind of being a middling team. Like, I don't think really anybody expected them to go in there and win that game. And they didn't just win. Like, they pretty much handled them pretty convincingly. I mean, like, Patrick Mahomes was in hell. They were pick six. Jack Jones.
A fumble return for a TD next play. Yeah.
Jack Jones is, like, pointing at him, laughing at him on his way to running into the end zone. Like, Zamir White, who is this? He ran for, like, 150 yards with Josh Jacobs out. Like, they had a couple of other starters out. And, like, you could just, like, that was it. Like it was at that moment, it's like, I don't know how you don't give AP the job. You know what I mean? And so I think that was the moment that stamped him. Obviously, they wanted to try to make the playoffs at the end of the season. They lost a close game to the Colts that pretty much knocked them out of it. And so they fell short of their expectations in that sense. But just from an emotional standpoint, like, I think it would have, like, I guess I can't say revolt, but like it would have been a serious issue if they would have not given AP the job after that game.
I remember Max Crosby hopped out there, publicly said he would demand a trade if they didn't bring AP in. Have you had any interactions with that dude? Because he's an interesting fella to me, man.
Was that actually tree he was smoking in that video, or what?
Listen.
I plead the fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You feel me?
No, but Max, I'll tell you about Max. Like, so I started covering the team in 2020. Which was going into his second year in the league, first year in Las Vegas. And like I got on the beat in like March. And like one of the first stories I did when I got on the beat was like basically a Max Crosby profile. And so he was in LA at the time. I didn't notice at the time, but he was checking into rehab because he had struggled with substance abuse throughout mostly his college career and in his first year in the pros. And we just like talking probably for like 30 minutes. I've never met him before. And like, we were kind of talking about his upbringing, and he started telling me about how in high school he used to make like rap mixtapes because he was like friends with Post Malone. They went to like the same high school in Texas.
Really? The fuck?
And like,
Post Malone was weird as hell before he became Post Malone, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's old videos, but go ahead.
But I'm like Max Crosby's making rap mixtapes? Like, what kind of white boy is this?
Like he was getting in the booth and making tracks with Post Malone in high school.
Yeah. I'm like,
that's
all right.
wild.
Like I had never met him before. I'm like, all right, this is one of this. He got Max with the 2 X's. I'm like, all right, this is starting to like add up a little bit. But no, he's always kind of been like, I know we had the whole black versus white team thing. Like it was never a question. Like he would be trying to be playing for the black team. And like, like players in the locker room fuck with him, on a different level because of that, I think. The coaching staff really rocks with him. But I think it was interesting to me just to see, like, 'cause I don't know if we've really seen that before, like a white superstar jumps out there for like the black interim head coach, like, nah, give him the job or I'm out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like he already got paid. Like he's, beloved by the fan base, beloved by the team, one of the best players in the league. Like, and for him to be willing to go out there and like, he don't want to leave the Raiders, but like threaten to do so, like for a black head coach to get the job, like, I think that's pretty significant. And he wasn't joking either. You know what I mean? It was kind of just like drawing a line in the sand because, and I think he was one of the bigger supporters of Bisaccia last time, and I think he kind of like, slow played it a little bit and like kind of tried to fall back on it. But this time he was like, nah, like we're not doing this shit again, basically. And so I think that was huge. Like I think they were probably leaning towards AP anyway, but that was one of the things. Like I don't care about Jim Harbaugh, I don't care about Bill Belichick. Like don't fuck this up, Mark. Basically, was what the message was, and ultimately we saw he got it done.
Was Jim and Bill? Those were the other options. I couldn't imagine Bill with the Raiders.
No, those weren't like. Okay. In terms of who the Raiders, the only outside candidate that I think they really truly would have been interested in was Jim Harbaugh. I think they actually would have been interested in because they were last time that they had a head coach opening back in 2021. They kind of flirted around and kicked the tires on it. One of the GM candidates they interviewed, Ed Dodds, has a connection to Jim Harbaugh. They both worked for the Raiders back in 2003. They interviewed him last time. They interviewed him this time. So it's kind of one of those things where it was like kind of hanging around, and that was a potential option that maybe they wanted to explore. But I think shortly after that, Crosby kind of threat came down. I mean, they because of the Rooney Rule, like, and it's kind of unfortunate, honestly, that they had to like do it, but they kind of just randomly interviewed 2 unemployed Black former assistant coaches before they interviewed AP and hired him. But it was clear that they weren't really considering anybody else by the time that week came around.
Did you feel like we were talking throughout the year, like from when he got appointed interim? He's obviously a very media conscious dude. He worked at ESPN for quite some time. Actually worked at ESPN while he was coaching at Poly. I definitely felt like, I'm not saying it was like fully orchestrated, but it definitely felt like a very well executed campaign to get him the coaching job, right? You had ex-players come out at a certain time and say, this dude is Raiders culture. You had players coming out. You had some members of the media I saw in some of the press conferences asking like very friendly questions about like, hey, I noticed that all the practice squad guys are on this, like there are these sort of like different moments where you could see the story being built of how this was the perfect guy. Did you kind of feel that through the time? Like, okay, this is being done in sort of a conscientious way. And then I agree with you. It's like then Max, puts the big joker on the table and it's like, they would at this point actively be fucking it up to not hire this dude. You know what I mean? Which if you're an interim coach who's gone from a linebackers coach to being hired as one of the top guys in the league, at a real, one of the franchises that really means something, that has like a global brand, that's a unique thing. So were you kind of conscious of that as it was going on? You could kind of feel that momentum, I guess, in the room?
Yeah, none of that was by accident, of course. Like, AP played it pretty smooth. I got to give him credit for that one because like he he came in and said all the platitudes about like, oh, I'm not thinking about the offseason and getting the head coaching job and all that in the first. Yeah, like you come off top with the Raiders backstory. I grew up a fan. I'm from Compton, NWA. Like you're hitting all the notes.
Yep.
You got a basketball hoop in the locker room the first day. As soon as we walk in, the players just happen to be playing 1-on-1, blaring music. Like it's.
But I do feel like that's part of what players connect to. I mean, I know that was the case with the super. He obviously coached Jack Jones when he was in high school. I knew both of them well in Long Beach, but he had that same connection with players off the same thing. It was like players almost appreciated the way he was thinking those moves through because he's teaching them, if you get into a situation, this is what you should be doing, X, Y, and Z to get yourself in a better situation. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. But it also, I think it's like, it's an optics thing, right? And so like, even from like the post game, like they beat the Giants who sucked. And like you're lighting up post game cigars in the locker room, like what's like what's going on here for real? Like you bring around all the former Raider players in the locker room. He ends all his speeches with the long ass Raiders chant. Like he's always wearing all the different cool Raiders memorabilia. He's not just wearing the normal Nike zip up jacket with the little logo on it. Nah, I got the big ass coat on with all the patches and all this. So like he was leaning into it. It was smart because it worked. Obviously, the results still had to follow through on the field. But he got the players on his side. He had the fans on his side. He had the alumni on his side. And I think Mark Davis, probably more so than other owners, like he's always cared more about that stuff just because that's kind of how the Raiders have always been. It's kind of how Al Davis was. That's how Mark is. And so like he still was, going to go through his process and ultimately do what he wanted to do, but he can be swayed by those types of things, I think, a little bit more than other owners. And I don't think that was something that AP was unfamiliar with.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's interview and hiring season for NFL coaches right now, right? And when we first had you on, we had you on to discuss your pod series Between the Lines, which was an examination of the NFL and its history with race and its hiring practices and such. And, again, incredible work on that. Highly recommend all our listeners go check it out if you haven't. And, at the center of our discussion was, of course, the Rooney Rule. And, while we might have had differing opinions on that, I think it's a flawed rule, but it's better than nothing. And I'm not on some, be happy for the crumbs they give us shit. I'll never be one of those type of motherfuckers. But I think we all agree that, networking is the most vital thing to securing a head coaching job in the NFL, right? And we all agreed that, there's truly no way to litigate 70-year-old billionaires embracing black people into the good old boy network of theirs, right? But I want to talk about David Shaw. David Shaw was the former head coach of Stanford, been out of work for a year, was fired in 2022, and he interviewed for the Chargers head coach position. And I think all of us saw that and we rolled our eyes okay, this is a Rooney Rule check off. Harbaugh is their guy, right? But I think that we have to keep in mind that David Shaw was the offensive coordinator during Harbaugh's head coaching years at Stanford. So I think it's safe to kind of deduce here that Harbaugh probably advocated for the Chargers to interview him, right? And the Chargers, who obviously had Harbaugh, on their leaderboard for this position, were like, hey, whatever you say, Jimmy, we'll for sure bring him in, And now, we all knew he had no chance in hell of ever getting that Chargers head coach position. But after that, the Titans brought him in for a head coach interview. So, I think we can kind of deduce here as well that he interviewed well with the Chargers, word got around that this guy is someone who was worth a look. The Titans bring him in for an interview. And I do think that the Titans probably brought him in good faith because they also interviewed the offensive coordinator for the Panthers, Thomas Brown, right? And he advanced to the final stages of the interview process before they went with Brian Callahan, womp womp. But I feel like, the David Shaw experience just kind of perfectly encapsulates, my conflicting emotions about the Rooney Rule, right? There's times I roll my eyes when I'm like, okay, they're just checking off the box here. But, also you see the good that rule can bring at times because, David Shaw interviewed well with the Chargers, for a position he had no chance in hell of getting. But then that landed him an interview for a position that he possibly had a shot at, right? So just curious, on your perspective, where you're at with kind of the Rooney Rule, as flawed as it is, and where you stand on that, seeing kind of, this David Shaw kind of example.
It's tough because it's for example, and even though the Raiders hired a black guy, but they interviewed Leslie Frazier as one of their Rooney Rule interviews, which is what it was. He's former head coach, but most recently was former Bills defensive coordinator. He was also didn't work this year. But he literally the day before he interviewed for the Chargers joint, come over, interview for the Raiders joint. It's he has no chance for either one of those. And even though the Raiders hired a black coach, it's just for me, it's clear. I mean, and the other guy that the Raiders interviewed, Chris Richard, he hadn't been in the league for a while either. And it's there is no, it's not like they were going to get hired as a defensive coordinator because they already got Patrick Graham in place. So it's really no benefit for them of doing this. And for me, that boils down to just checking the box and kind of the issue that we talked about in the past. And so I don't really know what the solution is because it's kind of hard to decipher what interviews are real and which ones aren't. But I think it goes to show that the rule is still flawed for sure and doesn't really guarantee anything from that standpoint. And I think it's, for me, when it comes to coaches because coaches aren't stupid, they're human and they know going into that interview, I didn't really have a chance at the Raiders job. I more so understand it when a younger coach does that. If you're in your 30s, up and coming, maybe black coordinator, you don't really know owners like that, haven't maybe worked for one team your whole career and don't have those very relationships. I think maybe that could be more of a benefit to you to get into these different rooms and meet these different owners and coaches and maybe set yourself up for other jobs. But unless you're in your 50s and 60s, the older black former head coach, can we stop taking these joints that we know you have absolutely no chance of getting? What do you they don't really get anything out of that for me. And so it'd be better off just leaving that up to like I said, one of those younger black coaches or another. Obviously, the Rooney Rule isn't just about black candidates, but whether it's women or another race or whatever it may be. I just it kind of makes me feel weird when it's the older coaches, especially ones that have already been head coaches. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's still kind of a conflict for me. I don't really love it. I know what you're saying about him getting other interviews, but ultimately he still didn't get a job so far from what I could tell, out of it. So
Did you notice? Like, I felt like I noticed an uptick in the number of national, the kind of breaking news guys who would tweet like, "Oh, the Chargers interviewed this person, which fulfills their Rooney Rule obligation." Like, I felt like there was a real uptick in people who were tweeting that out, and that's what I thought about every time. Is what y'all were just referencing. Like, that must feel shitty as fuck. Even if you're a black candidate who knows he's interviewing as part of the Rooney Rule. So then you open your phone up and it's like, oh, the Chargers, it's literally like Adam Schefter saying the Chargers checked the Rooney Rule box. You know what I mean? Like with your name attached to it. Did you kind of notice that uptick? And I anytime I see that, I have to imagine it's not like a coincidence that, that was being pushed out there more this year.
Yeah. And it wasn't just them. Like I did it too. Like when the Raiders interviewed Richard and Leslie Frazier and the only other interview was Antonio Pierce, I'm like, all right, like, we're not stupid here. Like we can see, we can see what this is. You know what I mean? But like I feel like it's, it may come off kind of insensitive and whatnot, and so I get like some people reacting to that negatively. But I feel like we should point that out. Like if a team is just interviewing two black people on some bullshit, just to satisfy the Rooney Rule, like we should state it. We shouldn't run from it and act like and list the person's resume and act like they actually have a real chance for the job that we don't. Like I don't think there's any reason for us to play stupid about it. I think that kind of stuff like helps point out like the flaws of the rule and kind of how ridiculous it is when some of these teams, like, they already have their mind made up and they're just doing this just because they have to, not because they really are interested in this candidate.
I guess I view reporting from you as different from reporting from
Schefter.
From
Schefter. I get what you're saying.
He's just saying information. You're trying to call some people out on what
Right. Because to me, right, it's like I obviously loved your podcast that Tyler was referencing, but like then I look at Adam Schefter and it's like, okay, this is like the teams want him to, make sure that everyone knows. But maybe he is being, like you said, maybe it is just he's has the same motivations as you potentially too, I guess. But that's a fair point. It's like it's bullshit, but it's not the reporter's fault. It's bullshit.
It's like, I'm only telling you what the team is doing.
Right.
Like, I ain't do it. I set up the interview, so yeah.
All right, well, Tashan, thank you so much for hopping on, man. Oh, actually, before you get out of here, man, what's the Super Bowl going to be like? I mean, I just can't imagine. Super Bowl in Las Vegas is like, it just feels like the setup to a crazy movie. You know what I mean? Like
Hangover Part 4 or whatever the fuck they're like.
Are you excited? Are you already like dreading some of the craziness we were just talking about? Like, I'm hoping everyone behaves themselves, but it's like you have the whole football world converging on Las Vegas when they're probably most of them leaving places that were cold. I don't know, man. It might be interesting. What are your thoughts on that coming up in a couple weeks?
I mean, I'm excited for it. I mean, I know we had Formula One here in Vegas a couple months ago. And that was like a 3-day event, and they shut down the whole strip. But I feel like that's more of like an elitist. Not that the Super Bowl isn't, but like Formula One is very much so like I have like millions of dollars, and if I'm here, I have millions of dollars type of event. Whereas a Super Bowl, you're gonna have those type of people too, but you're also gonna have like a few 100,000 like random drunk people that just wanted to get into some crazy shit. And the streets won't be shut down like it was for Formula One. So like the chances for bullshit are very high that week for sure. It's gonna be crazy for sure.
Forecast calls for at least an 85% chance of bullshit. Yeah,
it's like it's Vegas. It's not just like a normal city. It's like I know the Super Bowl is crazy anywhere, but like from the clubs to the strip clubs to the gambling to everything else going on in the city, like it's gonna be wild. Like it's gonna be wild for sure, but I think it's gonna be fun. Like I'm looking forward to it. I've never covered a Super Bowl before, and so like from afar I can kind of get a sense of what the experience is like. But it's just different, when it's up close and personal. And obviously, Allegiant Stadium is dope. They're gonna turn out all the stops to make sure the game is crazy. And so I'm looking forward to it personally. Like I'm more so like honed in on like the matchups in terms of like what teams we get to see, because I'm definitely. I'm trying to get like the blackest Super Bowl possible. Like that's like
we need Baltimore, Detroit, baby.
And I know the NFC.
Baltimore, Detroit with Usher at the halftime show. Come on, man.
Yeah. Like I know Jordan Love let us down, so we don't got the quarterback part in the NFC. But like the Lions, Detroit, it don't get too much blacker than Detroit. So like if we get that, and I know Lamar in there, Baltimore. So like like you said, Usher at the halftime show. The pregame show kind of threw me off though. I was kind of. I know. I just talked about Post Malone earlier, but like, yo, why is Post Malone singing? I think it's the Star Spangled Banner or some shit. Like, so he's singing one of them. He's singing like one of the like America songs that we sing before games for some reason.
Post Malone singing "God Bless America."
He's singing something before the
Are
game.
you for real? I had not heard that.
We going from Post Malone and like somebody else before the game to Usher at halftime. Like, who set this up? I guess we got to blame Jay-Z, right? Like, it's his fault. But
Rock Nation, everything's Rock Nation's fault.
I'm looking forward to it. It should be America America the Beautiful?
Oh yeah, Jackson just messaged us that. I will be honest with you. Pretty good imagination. Cannot picture that. I cannot picture.
He's a big country music fan, so I mean, I kind of from Texas, kind of makes sense. You know what I mean?
I guess
It's not an easy song to sing.
No, I don't think it'll be good. I'm just saying, I think he'll enjoy it because country music fans probably like singing songs like that. That's where I'm coming from. I don't think, not the biggest Post Malone fan person.
All right, Tashan, thank you. Biko's got a question. This is a good question. Before you get out of here, what player do you enjoy interviewing the most on the Raiders?
Josh Jacobs for sure. Because Josh Jacobs will just say shit. Like, he don't care. Like, it's like whatever it is on his mind, it's coming out. Like, there's no filter. There's no like one of the last things he said, I think, before Josh McDaniels got fired, I think we asked him about like how to fix the offense, and he was like, "Yo, that ain't my job." It's just like, dog, you're not supposed to say that
in so many words. You feel?
Yeah, it's just like I appreciate you, but like Josh Jacobs for sure, like he'll keep it a buck no matter what's going on.
That's great. All right, Tashan, thank you so much for hopping on. Stay safe out there in Vegas, during Super Bowl week, and have a lot of fun, bro. We'll see you soon. We appreciate you hopping on.
Yes,
Appreciate you, my boy.
Hey.